Well, we're here with Rusty Mercer, Director of Agronomy at the new Kinsale Club down in Naples, Florida. Rusty, you've been a part of multiple grow-ins, a lot of construction projects over your career. However, Kinsale's a little unique from all the other ones that you've done. Can you explain a little bit of why it's unique?
Yeah, Jordan. This piece of ground sits about 800 yards from the Gulf of Mexico. So it was in a floodplain. It's a swampy area. The existing material was a real fine beach sand. So we made the decision early on that we were going to have to raise the site about 4.5 feet just across the board. So that's what we did. Then we came back in. We had a number of lakes that had to be dug. So we used that material along with the play quarters. We excavated out 18 inches. After we had raised the site 4.5 feet, we came in and took the play quarter and took 18 inches of material back out of those. And then on the floor of those corridors, we kind of put in some sand or just some drain lines that we were going to fill with cap and use that for drainage. But in those play quarters, we capped it 18 inches with a very permeable, soft sand. It tested out to perk about 54 inches an hour.
Oh, geez.
So that was the construction technique here, and it served as a great way of generating some material to build a little bit of elevation change in between golf holes and create some interest in what was a very uninteresting piece of ground.
The normal method of construction, you've got some sort of organic base typically that you can use to shape and move and do things of that nature. Now you're talking about doing this all with sand. That's got to have its own struggles and things that you've got to overcome, right?
It's kind of a good news, bad news scenario. I mean, you can't have great golf without sand. That's just kind of a fact. So that's the good news. The bad news is it's really hard to grow grass on something as sterile as what I just described.
Mm-hmm.
Now we were fortunate in that we had a great deal of experience with exactly this at a prior property, so we kind of knew how to do what we wanted to do with that straight sand base. I think what we ended up with is some very interesting golf with really good green complexes and a situation where I think we maximized everything that this piece of ground had to give us.
When we started looking at the construction method and how you had to do this to make it a success, and you found the material that you wanted to use, you found that a 18-inch sand cap was the best way forward, and then we're like, well, I guess we need to grow grass on this thing.
Yeah.
And so when we figured out that grass needs to grow, but however, we're on straight sand, the next thing kind of you and I and the rest of the team talked about was, well, we need to be able to capture nutrient. We need to be able to hold on to something. Otherwise, everything is just going along with the water.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about how we attacked that, how you thought through a way to solve that problem, and then what we ended up doing?
You've got a number of different opportunities there in this situation. You've got straight sand laying on the ground. You can blend a reed sedge peat. You could do anything along those lines that we've known about for many, many years. But in this case, we had a great deal of experience working with a material called CEC. We've had tremendous success with it in a straight sand setting. So we opted to roll the dice a little bit, and rather than do what would be customary, we used this material. And we went out at really heavy rates. I think the pre-plant rate was at a ton to the acre. We followed that up 5 months later after grass was on the ground with another half ton to the acre. And then we're putting it, at least on greens, roughly 15 to 18 pounds monthly as we proceed.
I remember the day you put it out it was a white property after everything was capped. And then I remember getting a picture from you of just that white, pristine beach had turned black.
It was kind of funny. It was kind of funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the wildest thing, because 1 second it looked like it snowed, and the next second you're like, wait a minute.
In conjunction with the CEC, we went down with some really heavy rates of a chicken manure, and I think in combination that from a construction base
Right.
to give that sand some body and some viability. Those two things together are something that everybody should consider. What we're seeing now and what we've seen during the grow-in is like a hyperactive microbial activity in that top inch to inch and a half. And as we're generating all of this biomass, it's being just destroyed by microbes and converted into humus, which frankly that's the whole ball game, right? I mean, if
Right.
you can get that to happen, you will be successful in any agronomic endeavor that you find yourself in, and that has held true through this. I'm still amazed at my top, 3/4 of an inch to an inch of what is usually a very dense organic layer. This isn't dense. It's just it's completely been degraded into the humus material that we're looking for.
The craziest part, as we've discussed and we've looked at, it's we have this sterile sand. We know there's no biology in that thing.
Correct.
And the only biology that was really applied was chicken manure and the dirt from the sprigs.
That's correct.
And with using CEC and proper, feeding and pre-plants and all these things, you've created this biology in that system that is running wild. And like you said, that material, it just kind of, it's got a firmness to it, but it's still malleable and it's friable and it's decomposing. There's nothing that's accumulating, right? It's not going like this. It's just smooth and sailing all the way down through.
I've planted a lot of sprigs in my life, Jordan, in a lot of different environments, on a lot of different soils. I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like this happen this quickly. I mean, we all know the most of the organic matter that we're trying to accumulate in soils comes from the plant itself.
Right.
The plant is generating, it's sloughing leaves off, it's dying out stolons and rhizomes, and we are dependent on that microbe to take that and digest it and turn it into the humus. That's the only way that this happens. But I think what's amazing to me here is the accelerated rate at which I'm watching this happen. Usually this takes a year or two, maybe 2 summers. This happened like right off the bat, first summer. And I'm going to attribute a lot of that to this CEC.
That's my next question is you've done so many grow-ins and constructions that you almost think that you have this thing down to a science and you've seen it all. But this is the first time that you're seeing anything like this.
It truly is. It's not an exaggeration. It is truly the only time I've seen this happen at this rate. Now, if you're doing all the right things, it always happens.
Right.
I mean, that's Mother Nature's way. But I haven't ever seen it happen this quickly. I mean, this began happening at sprigging.
That's right. I forgot about that. You're right.
It's a really good material, man.
The longevity of what you have there of, an 18-inch profile, it's still stand where you're having the ability to create your own soil, how you want to do it, organically, balanced. And we know how we have to feed, and having the ability to feed and hold on to some of that while also not holding on to excess or using excess. As far as our inputs go, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game, right?
Yeah, it's that, but I don't want to skip over the value of what we're seeing with water right now. Typically, in that sprigged zone there, in that top half inch, if it's not handled correctly, water becomes a nightmare. That zone has a tendency to want to be hydrophobic if it gets just a little bit dry. And I think this is where the continuation of the CEC applications are important, in that we're not seeing any of that. We see a uniform distribution of water every time we run irrigation. And it doesn't take much irrigation to get, a 2 or 3 inch depth of water. So it's the uniformity of how that water is going down through that profile that I'm also going to, in large part, attribute to the CEC simply because of what it was doing from a microbial standpoint. So that's a huge factor. I'm just not seeing hotspots anywhere that you would typically associate with a straight barren sand site.
So kind of what you're saying is we've overcome some obstacles in the immediate, but now you think that there's a benefit to the continued application and continuing to create biology and soil and all of these things, how you're doing it now.
I believe so.
Great.
And that is our plan.
Well, I mean, Kinsale is a very unique property, especially given the area, the architecture, the landscape, the construction method, and the way it's going to be maintained. So, you have to kind of find these tools, adapt and change, and be thinking outside of the box. And it sounds like, the outside of the box type of thinking has benefited you and Kinsale.
Oh, it absolutely has. And Jordan, I've said this to you before. It is such a valuable thing for a superintendent to surround himself with people who are not just like-minded, but who are curious as you are. It would behoove everyone to just find those people. Surround yourself with people that you can trust and talk through all of these kinds of interesting topics and come up with good solutions.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's all about team and trust and being constructive in how you approach situations and different difficulties that you'll come along, because it's a tough road because you never know what's coming at you. But if you're not in it alone, things tend to get a little bit easier.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
We've gotten this far. You've gotten grown in. You're ready to accept golf. You're ready to combat season, right? Season's changing. So now what do we do? What do we need to do to change philosophies to meet golfing standards, to meet a change in the weather, et cetera, et cetera? What is it that we need to change in how we do things, whether it's fertility wise, whether it's maintenance wise?
I think that began, 3 weeks ago with Jay's visit. That was a turning point visit, and the objective for that meeting was to basically say, okay, we've accomplished goal number one. We're grown in, we're fully covered, but now we got to play golf, and we both know that growing a golf course in and playing golf on it are two completely different things.
Two different worlds.
Number one, it's an understanding of when that time comes, and I think we recognized that.
I would agree.
And then it was, okay, how do we begin to lean things off just a little bit? How do we back off these accelerated growth rates, but gradually? And then how do we get ready to open this thing up, but still understanding that the maturity of a golf course is going to take 1 to 3 years. So it's a bit of a slow process. We have reached the point where we're looking at beginning that process of escalating maturity. So we'll continue doing what we're doing. I think we have a great plan in place now for phase 2. I love what I'm seeing from these sprays. The grass plant is responding just incredibly from these silicon sprays. They're standing more upright. They're getting a little denser. Ball roll is improving. So it's doing all of the things that we anticipated happening.
I think you're right. We recognize the right time to turn, and
yes,
when we turn that mentality, that goes from a growing to a playability concern, right? So. And when you decided that it was time to change kind of sources, methods, intervals, things of that nature, I think it was the appropriate time. And I think that the choices that were made are going to accelerate and get you right where you got to be when you open.
Well, again, I think this goes right back to what I said a minute ago. I think superintendents inherently will understand when that time is that you need to make this change. But then here's where it gets just super critical, that you're dealing with people that you can trust, and frankly, who might know more than you do about fertility and the best way to make these changes successful. And that's where you guys have just been. It's been 10 years now since Weiner walked into my office, and we began this relationship and this partnership, and that's how I view this. It's a partnership. Jason Dogowitz is one of the sharpest people I've ever been around in my life. So to utilize and have that resource is there's not even words for it. It's that valuable. You, my young friend, are amazing. The things that you're learning and the knowledge that you possess now with banging around down here in this godforsaken part of the world. So I'm 63 years old now. I've been doing this a long time, and I am completely convinced at this point that if you're out there on your own trying to do this all by yourself, you're going to fail. You've got to build a network of people around you that are going to tell you the truth, good, bad, or indifferent, and then help you work your way through that. It's just, it's a shame that it would take this many years for someone to understand that, but I there's no doubt in my mind now that a relationship with Plant Food Company and the guys that y'all have out there in the field it's irreplaceable.
Well, I think I speak for everybody, especially at Plant Food Company, but I think everybody in the area and anybody who's heard of Kinsale is getting super excited for it to open and kind of be put into the public's eye. So we appreciate you. We appreciate your team. We appreciate Kinsale, and we look forward to really a long, long future of the success of that property and a relationship with you and your team.
Well, that's guaranteed, my friend. That's guaranteed.
Good. I'm glad. It makes me happier.
Well, let me throw in one exclusion here. If you keep beating me as bad in golf as you have been, that could cause a problem, Jordan.
Listen,
I want you to keep this in mind the next time we play, okay?
I will. We'll keep it to a team game because I can't win the team game. You and your partner, you and Jason, it's unbeatable. We got you one time, but I don't think it's ever happening again.
Yeah, but I'm still upset about that. And Jay and I have talked about this almost weekly.
I know. And listen, it's one time. We're gonna chalk it up to an anomaly, and we're gonna move past it. I won't rub it in.
Just remember that a portion of your future sales are dependent on how you behave next time.
Oh, I got you in a couple times. I'll remember it. Let me just jot the note down here real quick. Behave. All right. I got you, buddy.